Now, for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, Dr. Constance, our Arise analyst, gets on the saddle to dissect the newspapers with us this morning. Dr. Constance.
Good morning, Benga.
Good morning, Dr. Constance.
And good morning, Yolanda.
Good morning, Dr. Constance. Thank God it's Friday.
You don't know how excited I am.
Friday.
You say this all the time. What does that mean?
I love the cash.
Okay. Okay, really looking forward to a fabulous weekend.
Yeah.
All right, I know that our viewers are also looking forward to the weekend. Let's share those stories that are shaping the agenda for you today. We'll begin with this day newspaper. So today, the prominence of security stories and kidnapping crisis shows that insecurity remains the single biggest challenge facing Nigeria. The current headlines capture the mood, one in which the Nigerian state is being pushed to demonstrate its capacity to protect citizens or risk deepening distrust. Some front pages highlight continuing kidnapping incidents. This day writes about the abduction of 7 mourners in Abuja and the kidnap of 24 others in Niger State. The lead story reads that the president has named the National Security Advisor Ribadu to lead the U.S.-Nigeria Working Committee on Security. And the window piece is a prediction that election spending will drive the 2026 economic outlook. Onto Vanguard newspaper, which is reporting that bandits kidnapped a pregnant woman and 30 others in Niger and FCT. New Telegraph goes with the news that 11,566 police officers have been withdrawn from VIPs following the president's directive. And former military head of state, IBB, seems to question the negotiations with bandits as a strategy, saying that instead of brokering a deal, he will go band for band with them. Daily Trust and The Guardian also feature those abduction stories. The Punch reflects on the Safe School project, which is stalled in 30 states in the face of rising abductions, as well as Nigeria condemning the coup in Guinea-Bissau. In leadership, former President Goodluck Jonathan has been evacuated from Guinea-Bissau following the coup there. Daily Independent highlights Nigeria's health system. Minister says it is an appalling condition, while Minister Nyesom Wike of the FCT is demanding an update from the Defense Ministry over the disputed Abuja land. Also in Daily Independent, President Tinubu names Ribadu to lead U.S.-Nigeria Joint Working Group. Daily Sun highlights House of Representatives members advocating community policing and forest guards, while Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Bianca Ojukwu preaches peace in the Southeast, asking for unity. Overall, the current crisis is severely affecting education, social cohesion, and public confidence, especially in rural areas or conflict-prone zones, where many schools and communities are vulnerable. Moving on to the international headlines, let's pull up the Times. Many papers lead with the government's reversal on a key employment rights pledge. Instead of granting workers the right to claim unfair dismissal from their first day on the job, the threshold will now be 6 months. The revised approach reflects pressure from business leaders who want that day one protections could harm hiring and flexibility. The Times newspaper, iNewspaper, and Financial Times have gone with that topic. Workers' protection completely abandoned. Daily Telegraph reports that young people are fleeing labor's high-tax Britain. It also quotes Putin as saying his country will fight until the last Ukrainian dies. The Guardian turns attention to the Hong Kong Tower fire, saying death toll is rising with at least 83 people killed and 230 missing. Metro.co.uk focuses on the immigration decline in the UK, with fewer people coming to Britain to work and study. But Daily Mail plays up the fact that Britons are leaving in droves, while a record over 100,000 people are seeking asylum. In general, on the international scene, the Hong Kong fire has reignited debate over urban housing safety and building regulations, as well as the use of traditional construction materials like bamboo scaffolding. And security forces from Israel launched an operation in the northern West Bank city of Tubas, entering neighborhoods with helicopters and ordering evacuations. Now, let's break down what these headlines mean for everyday people. Let's pull up this day again. Fresh abductions and the U.S.-Nigeria Working Committee to be led by the NSA. Let's remind you the names of the members of this group. That's National Security Advisor Ribadu, the Minister of Foreign Affairs Ambassador Yusuf Tugar, Minister of Defense Mohammed Badaru Abubakar, Minister of Interior Honorable Olubumi Tunji Ojo, Humanitarian Affairs Minister Dr. Bernard Doro, Chief of Defense Staff General Olufemi Oluyede, Director General of the National Intelligence Agency Ambassador Mohammed, and the Inspector General of Police Mr. Kayode Egbetoku, and Ms. Idayat Hassan of the Office of the National Security Advisor and Mr. Paul Alabi of the Embassy of Nigeria in the U.S. will serve as the Secretariat. Benga.
Okay, good initiative coming from the federal government of Nigeria. We've seen what we can call a swift response in adopting this joint working approach, multilateral, bilateral approach between Nigeria and U.S. But we need to be mindful of the Article 2 of the United Nations Convention that calls on nations to respect each other's sovereignty and not want to interfere on the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of nation states. So as they adopt this joint strategy, we've always called for global partnership, international partnership in driving this threat, because when we look at it, there is a multi-national approach in this issue of security threat. We've had this adoption of the MNG, the Multinational Joint Task Force between Nigeria and Chad and some other countries, but we've not seen that strong political will. So we are thinking that now this will change the narrative as much as possible. But now we also need to adopt a very strong political will in driving our homegrown security approach. Just yesterday, the IGP announced that he is withdrawing 11,566 policemen from the VIP. And this is a strong reminder of a report that was released that uncovered the rot in the training institute. Now they are going to train about 50,000 policemen in terms of recruitment, and the plus 11,566. Do we have the capacity to train these people? I remember a former president that had the opportunity to turn things around, but he saw it from the political lens and he saw it as a politically motivated agenda, calling him to come and see what's happening at the Police Training Institute. But thank God that today the president has woken up to the rot that stinks to what I would call the high heavens in the police training institute. And now they are making efforts to address this issue. So I think in the coming days, we should, as the nation stands in the threshold of taking a decisive action against this perennial insecurity threat that has lasted over 15 years, I think that this is a moment of decision and we should take advantage of the quick wins.
Let me take you up on what you said about sovereignty. I mean, it's no longer about sovereignty. This is a partnership right now. It's a committee, a working committee that obviously is being accepted by both sides, the United States and Nigeria. Yes. So I don't think there's anything that will be done without without the knowledge, without the knowledge of each of the participating countries. So I don't think the issue of sovereignty are right. I mean, when President Trump made that statement about coming here guns are blazing, although he wasn't talking about invading Nigeria as a whole, he was talking about tackling specifically the terrorists that terrorizing Nigeria, and the fact that he thinks that Nigeria is not doing much about that. But now the conversation and the narrative has shifted because we had that delegation that went to the US to discuss with that country, and now we're looking more about how can they help in a way that Nigeria accepts or recognizes. But there's an angle that also, apart from that working group, that is very important. A couple of days ago, 2 days ago, I think, the president was quoted as saying that state governors should be careful about establishing schools, especially boarding schools, in areas that are far-flung from cities and that are vulnerable to attacks because we do not have enough security to cover all the schools. Most people will see that as a defeatist statement and a defeatist approach. Yes, it is true that many schools are in far-flung areas, but also majority of Nigerians live in rural areas, not in urban centers or in cities. So you will need schools to be located in areas where they are actually required. People require those schools. In a lot of those rural areas where it seems like education is not a priority, most states are making efforts, and even private individuals are making efforts to provide education and schools in those communities. So using that approach, saying that we should stop establishing schools in those areas, I think it is a problem. It might begin to discourage people that want to set up schools in rural areas from doing so, and that is a major problem for the country.
So, Dr. Constance, you're an analyst. What do you think is a way to solve part of this issue?
We're discussing already. The president is talking about training more police officers, making sure that the army is not overwhelmed with police duties. The state governors have already closed down the schools because obviously they do not have what it takes at the current moment in order to secure everybody. So the discussions that they're having at the National Assembly, the debates they're having at the National Assembly from yesterday to ensure that crimes are being punished severely, and people know that kidnapping is not something that should be done as a lucrative business. So it's going to be a holistic approach. It's not only about the security aspect, it's also about creating prosperity and good conditions for people in the country. If there is prosperity and people have jobs and there's social cohesion, it will be less probable that people continue to kidnap.
I think more importantly, I think that narrative reflects the reality of the ungoverned spaces that we've often talked about, because that is the problem we are having in this country. We have a large patch of ungoverned territories, and when you have such a situation, insecurity thrives. It becomes a retreating spot for many of these terrorist elements to retreat and eventually launch a reprisal. So like I was saying yesterday, that the government needs to, apart from staying on this onslaught, they need to also find a way of sustaining this military operation in such a way that they would be able to diminish the capacity of this terrorist element from launching a reprisal, because that is always the cycle that we fall into more often than not.
But we've always had these spaces in Nigeria. Geographically, Nigeria is big.
We need to
a state like Niger State, for instance, a state like Niger State has large expanse of land. And that's one of the issues that was brought up, that it's difficult for the police or even the army to police the entire space in Nigeria. So to begin with, you don't want these problems. You don't want multiple crises on multiple fronts, because it will be difficult and almost impossible to be able to handle all at the same time.
But sorry, what do you think about this statement coming from the former Chief of Defense Staff saying that Nigeria should start thinking about the need to fence its borders? Do you think that would be a way forward? Do we think we have the capacity to fence our borders?
It is not about physical fencing. I think it's about policing the borders better. The other day we talked about the customs and immigration, which is partly their job to secure the borders, to make sure that smuggling doesn't come in, to make sure that people, or, to use the word alien, people that are illegal should not be coming into the country. So it is their job. If they are not doing their job, we're going to continue to be having this crisis. Although, on the other hand, we also know that there is free movement of people within the ECOWAS sub-region, which in itself presents another problem. Let's go to the second story. talking about President Goodluck Jonathan, who is back from Guinea-Bissau, and West African leaders. That's Vanguard newspaper. Let's pull up Vanguard newspaper. President Goodluck Jonathan, who was trapped in Guinea-Bissau, where he went to monitor the elections, has been airlifted back to Nigeria, and AU and ECOWAS are condemning the coup in Guinea-Bissau. Do you want to take on that,
Absolutely. It was really good to see the former President Goodluck Jonathan returning safely yesterday. I think we all saw that footage. It was going around. They're showing it now on the screen. And it was a sigh of relief. He didn't return by himself. He was accompanied by heads of AU election observation mission. And there was initially concerns were expressed over the coup that is currently going on in Guinea-Bissau. And I think with what has happened since Wednesday, we have all come to see that those concerns have become quite justified. So he was an election observer at the time, suddenly before he became trapped in the country. And unfortunately, the elections were looking like they were going so well. So we don't know what went wrong because the civic engagement was strong. People had commended that it was looking professional. And so we just don't know what went wrong with all of this. And while waiting for the results, that's when this coup was announced.
I think what went wrong was the transparency and the absence of fair play in that election, with the opposition party being gagged and some not even allowed to take part in the election. So what we are calling for is, it takes us back to that call for a participatory democracy.
Right.
And that would naturally bring into a representative democracy. Because when you look at the turn of the Tinubu's administration in 2003, we saw ECOWAS falling into a setback in democratic participation with the withdrawal of Nigerian Republic, Mali, and Burkina Faso from the ECOWAS members of states. That's a setback for a region that was part of the democracy development and democracy development protocol that was signed in 2001. That was to strengthen democratic institutions and participation in the West African region. But what are we seeing now? And this would have adverse effects on the economic realities. Look at trade in Africa. The level of intra-African trade is still 13%, very low. And a lot of economic experts have said that this is the way forward for if we are to have stability, security, and prosperity in Africa.
So a couple of things we need to know about the ECOWAS protocol on democracy and governance. So now that the coup has happened, usually when a coup happens, there's a tiered response. And we saw that emergency meeting by West African leaders yesterday via Zoom, and immediately condemned. So usually a couple of steps, the members, the member can be suspended, so membership suspended. And then secondly, in some cases, there could be dialogue to see whether they want to change course. There could be border closures, imposition of sanctions, depending on how the negotiation is going on. Deployment of military intervention forces is also one of the steps, although that requires authorization by the UN Security Council. So ECOWAS has said that it will be firm, principled, and consistent, with what has just occurred in Guinea-Bissau. The question is, in the past couple of years, it hasn't really pulled its weight much. We saw what happened in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and how those three countries decided out of their own volition to pull out of the bloc, and now have their own alliance of Sahel states, even have their own common passport, common security forces to fight the jihadis that are terrorizing those countries, and economic cooperation among them. So what will be different now that it has happened in Guinea-Bissau? We will see a similar occurrence from those other three states. So I think it is a crossroad for ECOWAS, or ECOWAS
Indeed.
is at a crossroads.
Indeed.
Because if Guinea-Bissau has done this, what says that another country within the region will not take the same step?
I think it also reflects a lack of confidence in the ECOWAS sub-region, because one common resonance among the three states, Nigerian Republic, Burkina Faso, and Mali, was the failure of ECOWAS to tackle violent extremism in the rise of vulnerability along the Sahel region, and now they seem to be taking their fate into their hands. When you look at the internal politics of Burkina Faso, you see what the leader is doing. I think it's a time for us to rejig what democracy means to Africa in general, and to have a democracy that would reflect the aspirations of Africans as a people, as different from a copy and paste model that we've been having so far.
The bottom line is providing the basic amenities for people.
Absolutely.
Again, to use the word prosperity, if you create prosperity within a country, the kind of crisis that you face in terms of security challenges, will reduce. And poverty is a weapon. Poverty can be weaponized by anybody, and that's what we're seeing across the region.
Has been weaponized,
in fact, poverty
over and over again.
I said that again, is a national security risk.
Absolutely.
Actually, because when people are poor and you have high unemployment levels, although the unemployment levels in Nigeria, the data and the figures are changing, but the fact remains that a lot of people are not gainfully employed. When you have that kind of situation in your country, it's a threat.
There's no choice. You can't choose. You can't make decisions. You're left to take whatever is given to you.
All right, let's quickly see the third story in the Punch newspaper. An NPCL spends 17.5 trillion naira securing pipelines in 12 months. This was also for energy security operations in the year 2024. And analysts are demanding a forensic audit of the expenditure. Findings show that out of the total amount, 7.13 trillion naira was spent on energy security costs to keep petrol prices stable whenever the gap between the exchange rate and the ex-coastal price of refined petrol widened. This is according to the NNPC's 2024 Consolidated Financial Statements Punch reports. There was also pipeline surveillance, repairs, prevention of crude oil theft, and security operations aimed at ensuring an uninterrupted energy supply across the country. Huge financial burden, isn't it, Benga?
I think when we talk about democracy, I think we need to emphasize the role of accountability, transparency, and the rule of law.
Right.
Because we need to look at efficient functionality of institutions. Because what happens to the NSCDC in that kind of situation, that their mandate statutorily is to secure critical national assets. And now the NNPC, that recently is under probe for a missing over 200 trillion naira, is also claiming that it had spent over 17 trillion naira for maintaining of oil installations and pipelines.
Security,
and now we also understand that we know that there is a concessioning of this role to someone called Tampolo. So we need to really come out clear, because I know that the NSCDC in their budget too will be presenting this as one of their costs for their annual budget cycle. So when we see this duplication of roles and NNPC claiming that it has spent 17.5 trillion naira, we also question the fact of using about 7 trillion naira to stabilize the fluctuations of oil price and all that, when you already announced that subsidy has been removed. We thought that many of these fluctuations would have been dealt with.
Right. I mean, the demand for a forensic audit on this expenditure, it just shows how there is, people want to see accountability. And transparency. So whether this forensic audit will happen, we don't know yet, but there is a growing number of people saying this must be done. And NNPC has to open.
We still have the refinery costs that they are also proving, about over 7 trillion.
Now we're looking for partnerships for that refinery, no longer them to be sold. Okay, let's take our final story on the international front. More brouhaha over UK budget that was supposed to help drive down poverty among children, and immigration to the UK falls over 70%. So those policies, those new policies, they're working.
Are they?
Listen, from the data, they're working. From the data,
I think Kemi Bag does not
yes,
think so.
so that's what I was
But
thinking
think,
as well.
Yolanda has so much to say on
at
that.
least in the past 1 year, it has worked.
So I think UK right now is in such an unstable place. It started with this, when the budget was meant to come out, the atmosphere was so tense that day, only for the budget to be leaked beforehand. So I think that just added insult to injury already. And let's not even look at the parts that were spoken about by Kemi Badenoch, because she was really going in on Chancellor Rachel Reeves. And it's very unfortunate that, even Keir Starmer as well, it seems like they've really been struggling to find a balance in the whole thing. But if we want to talk about numbers, let me give you some of the budget highlights that I have written down here. So the taxes are going up by about 26 billion pounds.
Wow.
Overall. That is a lot. And I think that people in the UK now are really stuck, because the conversations that we've been having lately are around the immigrants that have been coming in, the benefits that have been going around, or should I say lack of benefits, the disability benefits as well. So looking at all of that, they're now bringing in electric car taxes, charging by mileage. It's a lot to look at.
What about the taxing of online gambling?
Yes, that was the one I was going to mention. That is
and
by
mansion
1
tax.
point. Yes, at least the mansion tax was just about half a billion pounds. Wow. But I mean, looking at the gambling,
we have to go.
I'm sorry.
That's why a lot of young people, according to the report, are fleeing the United Kingdom. All right, those were your headlines for today.
Oh, wow. Not enough time. Thank you, Dr. Constance.